Hey, good morning, afternoon, or evening, good people, wherever you are, wherever you happen to be, and however we're together. Thanks for being here. I'm Dave, and this is Dave's Head. So, what's in my head? I've tried to stay away from the whole social media discussions around recent events, tragic events, albeit, but recent events and the reactions to it. Partly because I honestly just don't deal with ignorance very well. And I have even less tolerance and tact for hate. We've seen over the past couple weeks this trend towards attacks on free speech and, ironically, cancel culture for those who disagree with it before it's now okay. Free speech, I thought, had long been the hallmark of quote unquote American democracy. But lately, it feels like speaking up comes with a cost, be it social, professional, political, relationships, whatever. Public figures such as Jimmy Kimmel are often criticized or even attacked and recently canceled for making jokes or commentary about this current administration in DC. Now, some may say they're exercising their free speech. Some may say, you shouldn't attack the president or the cabinet or the administration. For what reason, I don't know. But the question becomes, are they exercising free speech? What's interesting to me in that whole situation, and I don't want to dwell too much on it just because it's a little bit infuriating, triggering, even if you will. But what's ironic to me are the people who want to cancel, literally cancel, Jimmy Kimmel are one, the same people who were vehemently, clutch your pearls, angrily offended by quote unquote cancel culture in society mere weeks ago, months ago at worst. And I've talked about quote unquote cancel culture on this podcast before, and my belief that there's no such thing as cancel culture. There are consequences for your actions. And so some may say that with Jimmy Kimmel, this is a consequence for his action, and that's rightly so. It's a private company, they can do whatever they want. However, to pretend or remain ignorantly obtuse to the fact that this administration exerted influence through the FCC to get him pushed out, i.e., canceled, is laughably annoying. We know what happened. Let's admit what happened. And the problem we've got in this society today is that facts don't seem to matter unless they matter to you. Facts that contradict other points of view, especially those out there, such as, in the situations that's going on in social media and commentary today. If those facts don't align with the narrative you want to believe, suddenly they're not facts anymore, and suddenly they can be canceled. For instance, there's a certain TV personality who, in no uncertain terms, called for the involuntary euthanization, i.e., murder, of homeless people. But that's okay. Calling for the murder of people whose crime in society is that they have no place to live. That's okay. But oh, wait, I think they said he apologized or something. That makes it so much better. It's okay to call for the murder, or involuntary euthanization of people, as long as you apologize at some point afterwards. Go through legal, go through your PR team, get a nice apology to some, BS to others. But as long as apologies out there, it makes it okay now. No need to quote unquote cancel him, pull him off the air. But if somebody dares criticize this administration, calls out their hypocrisy in the ways that they're acting unpresidentially, somehow cancel culture is okay. Go right ahead, buddy. The chilling effect is that when people, normal people, stay silent because they fear backlash, legal threats, losing their business, support, even violence, That's chilling. And that's where we are at this point right now, where simply having a difference of opinion can get you killed or canceled, have your livelihood stripped away from you. And the root of all this is very simple. Facts no longer matter. You cannot tell a story or push a narrative, even if it's factual, if it disagrees with those who don't want to believe it. They will rally up and come for you. I think there's a Bible verse, truth is the way, the light, something like that. That's not true anymore. It's not okay to be truthful, to be factual, to bring evidence, to rely on evidence, to rely on science. All these things are under attack these days. And now it's the First Amendment right to free speech. Because this administration constantly attacks people who don't whip into line. Snap, snap, do what I say. Snap, snap, FCC. The distinction between lawful critique versus defamation, misinformation is it's gotten blurred. And sometimes people use that ambiguity to silence dissent. If you don't come crystal clear with your ducks in a row, dot your I's, cross your T's, shake hands, kiss babies, all these things, if you don't do these perfectly, make the slightest error, the slightest misstep, the slightest tongue twister, don't pop out an answer immediately. People use that as a way to dissent against you. It's sad the state that we've gotten to. This podcast, people can find offense to what I just said in the last, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, and come for me. Go right ahead. I don't care. Because one thing that's not going to happen is me being silenced from the truth. I was raised that truth matters. I was raised that facts over fiction. And those things matter. And we've lost our way in the sense that it's not important, really, that you have facts, evidence, proof, studies, all the things that we were taught growing up in science class and math class, that numbers don't lie. People lie, numbers don't lie. All these things that we were taught should be the foundation and basis for how we make decisions in life, how we choose a candidate, how we support an initiative, how we donate our money, our time. All those things should be rooted in the factual background or research and what that background or research puts in front of us as far as decision-making qualities. All those things we were told mattered. And we've gotten away from that, especially. I've said this on this podcast. I've said it to friends and family. What happened in this country is when a name by the man of Barack Hussein Obama decided he wanted to run for president, it broke almost half of this country. To the point where things that should matter, foundational decision-making qualities in things, no longer matter. And this country still has not recovered mentally from the fact that Barack Hussein Obama became president. Not once, but twice. That broke this country. And how we fix it, I have no idea. Because I'm logical. Illogic frustrates me. Ignorance frustrates me. So I lack the patience to wait for people to become logical, become competent, to do research, to base decisions on things that matter, like facts, figures, science. And those things are under attack. Shoot, history is under attack. You can't teach history in schools anymore without somebody clutching their pearls. It's attack on all the things that are foundational to historical fact, current fact, growth to move forward and learn lessons from the past. All those things are under attack today. Free speech is completely under attack. Now, I'm sure Jimmy Kimmel's not hurting in his pockets. I'm sure he'll be just okay financially. The problem is, will America be okay? Will the United States be okay if we keep allowing these rights and freedoms to be eroded one dictator at a time? It only takes one domino to bring the whole thing down. And the more we allow to happen, and people like to get offended at the words authoritarianism and all those things. Listen, do your research, look up the words. There are people who still use socialism wrong, don't understand the definition of socialism, right? Somebody said socialism back in 2007, 8, whatever, and they ran with it without knowing what the hell it means. Free speech is just another step to test how far it can go. We keep failing the test. Collectively. I'm not associated with that, but I'm just saying. Collectively. One band, one sound. We are failing this test over and over and over again because we keep allowing the erosion more and more and more. And when is enough going to be enough? Or will there ever be enough for it to be enough? We'll see. Before I get to the last thing in my head, Dave's Head Podcast is now part of the Alive Podcast Network, home of Black Voices, where community, culture, and creatives live. Dave's Head Podcast adds to the catalog of over 70 titles available in the Alive Podcast Network app for both iOS and Android. Check out Dave's Head Podcast and many others in the Alive Podcast app, the home of Black Voices. The last thing that's on my mind, 50 years is a long time. 50 years is 18,262 days. It's also 438,288 hours, or 26,297,280 minutes. And if you really care, 1,577,836,800 seconds. Why is that important? The day the last episode dropped, approximately 2 weeks ago, I was about to tee off at a golf course in Orlando, Florida. The second round of 4 rounds that I was going to play that weekend because I flew in Thursday that week and went down to Orlando with almost 20 other guys to celebrate the 50th birthday of a good friend and fraternity brother who was turning 50 years old, turned 50 on that Friday, I believe. It's a milestone to reach 50 years. And one of the things I've talked to youth about when I've spoken to them, I told them about the life expectancy of people, men, women, black men particularly, and that even back then, half my life expectancy was used up. And I was younger, younger-ish. And it, took them back a little bit. Really? Because I looked young, fit, didn't have as many grays. And the notion that half my life was already gone was kind of that ice water in the face moment, as I like to call them. And one of the things I talk about is, when I speak to youth is, time is our most precious commodity. It's one of the things I say all the time. And decisions you make, blah, blah, blah. I've talked about this before. And so getting to 50 years is milestone in itself because of the life expectancy. If we stay average as men, average as people, this is how many years you potentially have left. And so it's reflective time. It's a reflective time in a sense that, wow, this is 50 years. And it's just about all of us golf. It was a great opportunity to come together, and we did a Ryder Cup style, if you know golf lingo, Ryder Cup style competition between 6 and 6 players. Team Red and Black, that was my team. We won. Thank you very much. But from golf to fellowshipping, celebrating, and the ridiculous size and features of the house that we rented, that weekend was one certainly for the books. Literally this morning in our group conversation, somebody brought up the fact that we still miss being in that house and all the good time that we had. both fellowshipping, participating in the features of the house, great food. We had a chef cater almost every night except the last night because it was football Sundays. We had pizza and wings. But catered food, bartender every night. I believe 10-bedroom house, pool, basketball court in the house, arcade, bowling alley, all these things that are ridiculously a part of a house we enjoyed. But it highlighted another great thing for me, which is networking. And I've long talked about the need for youth, or not only youth, but adults, to do a better job of putting themselves, quote unquote, in the room with others who can uplift them. And that weekend was spent with executives, land developers, business owners, McDonald's franchise owners. And I'm not talking about one or two. I'm talking about 70 plus, 75 franchises this person and his family owned. And many more people across different spectrums and professional areas. We discussed so many ideas and ways that we can support each other past that weekend. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful to come together with a common purpose. In that case, the 50th birthday of my friend and fraternity brother Manoj. And he's known as a people gatherer. He gathers people together. That's his thing. That's his niche. That's what he's really good at. And so to bring all these men together to talk about life, to talk about our stories and our journeys, and to talk about ways that we can collaborate together and do amazing things. Beautiful, beautiful weekend. There's a saying that's attributed to Confucius. If you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. Smart to me doesn't always equal success. And I don't know if I was the smartest in the room or not, but I do know I was not the most successful. And so for that, I'm extremely, extremely glad that I was in that room. Happy birthday, happy 50th, and here's the 50 more Manoj. That's what's in my head. So in 2023, Forbes published an article by Denise Russo entitled How to Own Your Career in Times of Change. Now, she talked about the continued existence of, quote unquote, the Great Resignation and quiet quitting. By the way, as a manager, 20 some years, whatever it's been, I've worked with people who quiet quit. It's not fun. It's even harder, I think, when they don't work for you, but you have to work with them and they're quiet quitting. Another topic for another day. But she also says as workers continue to resign at higher rates, it'll signify that employees are willing to leave organizations that don't value their well-being. A 2023 American Psychological Association report referenced a quote by a guy named Anthony Klotz, who, during the research for this episode, I learned was coined as the originator of the coined term, the Great Resignation in 2021. Who knew? But a quote from him is, people are reflecting on their lives and asking why they're spending so much time in jobs that are stressful. As somebody who's done that, I understand that completely. She continues, while we cannot control the economy, whether jobs will be eliminated, why some companies promote the wrong people, sorry, little cough there about promoting the wrong people, or decisions others make, including actions we've taken in the past ourselves, we can control what we invest our time thinking about, acting on, and working towards. And so Denise recommends 5 investments you can make to your own career, choices, habits, and even your life. And so the first thing is time. She says, how do you spend each day? Do you plan or react? Do you control your calendar or does it control you? I'll pause there to say I'm a victim of my calendar. I look in the morning, I say where I'm going, what I'm doing, and that's kind of how my day goes. I'm working on that. For like the last 10 years, I've been working on that. But plan, act, and then reflect on noticing trends and how you waste, spend, or invest time. My little note on that is very simple. I've been speaking to youth for a long time. One of the things I say to them over and over and over again is a phrase I like to coin. I said that. Time is our most precious commodity. And so anytime you see me use that, I actually say it was written by me or spoken by me because I've never heard it before. But it's true. Time is our most precious commodity. What we spend it on, who we spend it on, the things we spend our time doing matters. And I've had conversations, and I've talked about this before, about life expectancy and how technically I'm way past half my life expectancy. So every second matters, especially in your career. Number 2, she says preparation. How much time do you spend thinking? How do you show up to meetings? Are you focused, fully and intentionally listening, preparing with contributions, and ready to take action? Do you invest in continued learning? She says job descriptions shift quickly. Look at AI, prime example. What you do today to learn and grow matters tomorrow. And so I had an episode a couple episodes back where I had a conversation about how we used to say technology changes every 2 years, and then we got to the point where we said every year, and it was 6 months, and I swear it's like weekly at this point. Whether it's the technology stack or the technology focus, it shifts from week to week. Especially large corporation I work for, I swear I'm making changes to my team every 2 weeks, it feels like. But you have to grow in order to have longevity in your career. That's part preparation. The third one she says is value. Do you work smart or hard? I tend to do both. Do you know what matters most? Use the Pareto principle. Focus on the 20%. Most important thing is get the 80% of desired results. Doesn't work all the time. In times of change, be reactive, not proactive. While companies cut costs, think about your value. What do you do that matters most to your company? Does that matter most to you? Put a pin in that for a second. I think it's incredibly important to look at what your company values you the most for and whether that's what you value in yourself professionally and all that. Do not allow times of change to make you disengage. I do that. Just do the minimum and forget you are a person of value. Now, I pointed to myself about the disengaged part, and that's really because I get frustrated with illogical changes. We don't have to change things just for the sake of change or because some guy read a Google blog somewhere and said we should change this. That happens a lot, believe that or not. And then we go to number 4, which is attitude. Probably should have put that in number 2. But the golden rule. Do you treat others how you want to be treated, right? The golden rule. Do you lead to serve or lead to be served? And again, putting a pin in, I can't tell you how valuable that one sentence is in my professional life, my personal life, the organizations I'm a part of. And so I'll say it again. Do you lead to serve or lead to be served? Some people just want titles. You have to navigate those minefields of people who just want titles and to get a certain status in class as opposed to doing good work, whether it's professionally, community, whatever. I digress. On the other hand, a great point she conveys as well is you can't multiply 0. I say this because our best intentions to lead, be managers, all this stuff, sometimes we get employees that just offer nothing of value. And it's okay. It could be a bad hire. I've had one bad hire in my life, and it took me 3 months to get rid of this poor guy, and it was the worst hire I ever had in my life. It was just bad. It was bad. But you can't multiply 0, right? Nothing is truer than those 2 points. I say that leaders inspire others to grow and produce. That's what they should do. Last point, gratitude. Relationships are essential to career evolution. What value do you provide to others? Do you share the value that others bring to you? Do you take intentional time to thank people and acknowledge the value not just in what they do, but in who they are? I talked about in my opening segment about celebrating my good friend's 50th birthday in Orlando a couple weeks ago, and the value that almost 20 men in that one house, it was okay, 20 men in one house, but 20 men in this very large house. The value we brought professionally and personally to each other and the relationships we built that are continuing even as of this morning. We're in our group chat talking about stuff. And so to wrap it up, investments are habits. What are yours? She says, and I usually don't quote entire segments, but I had to quote this entire paragraph because it's so powerful. How might you take control of change and gain more ownership over your career? Change can happen to us, or we can own change through us. A career is a journey to me, like life, ups, downs, smooth roads, and potholes, filled frustrations. This is my part. I stopped to quote a sentence ago. Investing in your career in this way can prepare you to work through the potholes and build on the smooth roads as well. So I'm talking about all this career stuff, not because of what's going on in this country at all, but actually a lot of it's going on in this country right now. But also it's a very valid topic for my guest this episode. I'm going to introduce her, a returning guest, by the way, Doctor now, Nicole Godlock. A little bit about her. She is the success doctor, career coach, tech executive. Dr. Nicole is a tech executive and career strategist with an 18-year career journey through technology and leadership in the healthcare and hospitality sectors. She helps professionals navigate their careers with clarity and confidence, the 2 big C's, whether seeking advancement, career transitions, or resolving burnout and misalignment. She's also a best friend of mine, an amazing person. And so welcome to Dave's Head again, Nicole. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Happy to see you. Happy to have you on the podcast once again. You are in the
Thank
select
you.
few
Thank
who have
you.
returned as guests on this podcast. I think we got like four people who've come back more than once, and I think we've only had one person come back four times or three times, whatever it is. Um, so very, very happy to have you back. But it's been a while, and so I know I gave you an intro, but as I always do with my guests, if you could take a moment and tell the people who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Well, you kind of told them already, but yes, that is me. I am also known as the Success Doc. I did get my doctorate in COVID while everybody was trying to fight for their life, myself included, but I got bored. So I pursued a doctorate at that time. I've been in the tech space for 18 years. It seems like longer than that, but it's been about 18 years now. And I've been in both the hospitality and the healthcare sector. So I've led implementation teams, engineering teams, and so on and so forth. And currently, I'm the senior director of digital delivery for a hospitality company.
Very nice. You say 18 years. I've been in technology since 1999. So that'd be 26 years. Wow. Ugh, getting old. I mean, the gray tells the story, but
Yes.
still, seriously. So let's talk about to start. What was the pivotal moment, or where did that transition start for you to go from just executive or in technology to also becoming a career coach? Coach.
I actually got to the point where I wanted to pay it forward. So I've had some really good people that I've met along my career journey that have been mentors and sponsors for me, and they've helped elevate me. And I got to the point where I feel like I've learned enough, I've experienced enough professionally that I can pay some of that experience forward and help other people elevate as well.
Yeah, that kind of goes right along with what I talked about in the opening segment and what I plan to actually talk about in my closing segment after this. But that circle, that network is a powerful thing to pay it forward and give, things you've learned, things you picked up from other people, and not only use those in relationships, but also kind of drop those nuggets and tidbits to people who may not even know they need those things.
That's very true. That's very true. So a lot of times when I am giving advice, it's usually happens in the most random places. It might be in an elevator. It may be in a cafeteria having lunch. It may be at a kid's sporting game and someone says, "Hey, how'd you get into tech?" And the next thing you know, they're trying to explore it and then they want to get into it and you're just kind of giving advice. Randomly, do I just go like knocking on someone's, cubicle or just giving my unsolicited advice? But it seems to just kind of happen organically, and that seems to be the way that a lot of relationships are built and people have the opportunity to be elevated.
And speaking of elevator, I think you just redefined the elevator pitch. If you're doing all that networking in a 30-second, 45-second ride, that's, I mean, talented, number one.
I've seen people have career opportunities opened up for them in an elevator. So you can get your next promotion in an elevator if you happen to be talking to the right person at the right time.
And I will say, I'm a big proponent of using technology to my advantage, and I keep QR code contact stuff on my phone, my lock screen. I can just one tap and show it to somebody. So a lot can be done in 30 to 45 seconds. I mean, here
You're
you go. Here's my
absolutely,
contact info. Boom.
yeah, you're
Especially if they have an
absolutely.
Eagles jersey or Eagles paraphernalia, roll tide paraphernalia, that
let's
type of
not
stuff.
let's not digress.
Yes. Sorry. Keep me on track. All right. So talk about helping someone identify when their career is misaligned versus they're simply going through a rough patch. How do you identify the differences and how do you help those two different types of people?
I look at like a rough patch as something that's more temporary, but we do spend a lot of time at work. And so, for all the time that we spend around our colleagues or pouring into our professional careers, you want to feel like you're getting something out of it. If what your end goal is doesn't align with what you're doing day to day, that's probably a misalignment. If you're stressed out because of a project or something that you're working on that's kind of time boxed and temporary, then that's kind of just to me a rough patch and it's something that you may be able to be, navigating through without having to necessarily switch the path that you're on.
Gotcha. And so, talk about too. If you look at technology today, you look at the industries today, you look at the hiring and firing trends and the reports, the job reports that come out, they get revised down. It seems like every other month.
Mhm.
In this day and age, which I don't even like that saying, but I'm using it here. In this day and age, with hiring slow down, how do you endure a career that you're not exactly happy in? It's not your passion when you could walk away but not find something else for six
I've been
months,
in
a
that
year.
space before. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, I was at one point looking for, I felt like I was misaligned. I was looking for my next
Mhm.
opportunity, but I knew that I still had to show up. And I didn't want my brand within the organization I was with to be impacted by the fact that I was getting burnt out. So it was a battle. It was a struggle every day to show up and do the work that I knew I could do and that I was known for doing. But at the same time, going home and spending hours on LinkedIn and responding to emails from recruiters or whatever the case may be, still trying to open up my next opportunity that I would be happier with. So it is a balancing act, but I would tell anyone, like, your brand is your brand. And if you separate mentally too early from the position before you've secured your next role, you're going to impact your brand. And long after you're gone from a company, you may meet your previous boss in your next company, right? You may meet your former colleagues 2 companies down the road or at a conference or something, and your paths cross again. You don't want to be remembered for something that's really not your best work.
Now, you use what I think is a powerful word there, which is brand. So some people say reputation, some people say resume. I think brand, because it speaks to different industries, but brand
Mhm.
is a powerful way to describe yourself. Can you elaborate on why you use that word?
To me, that is what it is. It is your brand. It's how you're known, whether people know you or don't know you personally. It's how you're recognized within the company. What people expect when they see your name on a meeting invite or your name on an email signature, and you want to be consistent with that.
Yeah, when people see my name on the email for a meeting I set up, I can almost hear them breaking their pencils sometimes. Just because I put exactly what we're going to talk about in the subject. You pissed me
But you
off. We need to
should.
talk. Yeah.
But you should. I'm kind of a stickler about that. You talked about time earlier and how we, are managed by our calendars, or we're managing our calendars and trying to strike that balance. And all day my calendar is typically double and triple booked. So usually if I'm attending, it's because there's a clear call to action for me to be there or a clear agenda of what I need to address. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
And you know what's interesting is I've gotten into this bad habit. I will characterize it as a bad habit of making a joke about the fact that I'm triple and quadruple booked in my work calendar,
Hmm.
which it's really a bad thing. And years ago I used to kind of harp on the fact like, listen, you see I'm booked, so don't book the time. And it became, well, okay, now I'm double booked. I'll just pick one, or I'll go half and half on one, which really one of those meetings is going to suffer, if not both of them.
Yep.
But it's gotten into a bad habit where I'm just kind of making light of the fact that I'm triple booked some days and quadruple booked for an hour, 2 hours at a time with overlapping meetings. Do you find, I'm assuming you experience that level of
Hmm.
booking as well. Do you find that the frustration becomes numbing after a while, where it's just a normal part of your day and you just accept it? Or do you continue to try to push back on, stop, stop booking me this time? You see, I'm booked.
I have kind of normalized it, and I don't know if that's
Mm-hmm.
the right answer, but I've just kind of, it's what's happened. It's been kind of the case for several years now, to be honest. Um,
Mm-hmm.
People also know, while I've normalized allowing my calendar to get double and triple booked, that I may or may not show up if there's another meeting at the same time that is a priority for me. And typically my priorities are driven by, what's going to be a biggest customer impact, what's the biggest budget impact, what's the biggest team impact. So like there's reasons that I'll be at a meeting and there's reasons that I'll have to choose to politely decline. And if you choose to double and triple book, it's kind of the the chance that you're taking at that point.
Yeah, and we get the excuse, at least in my experience, we get the excuse, well, we couldn't find a time to work for everybody, so I just booked something. If you can attend, you can attend. But these are never, at least on my level, and I'm assuming your level as well, these are never meetings where I'm like, oh, I can skip this one and let somebody else handle it. Because decisions are made, assignments are given. Next thing you know, my team's looking up, we got 40 things assigned to us, and we only should have two, that type of stuff. So you got to protect your team, protect, the area you're in by attending these meetings and holding people accountable. But it is very much normalized, and that's the right way to put it. It's normalized that we allow these things, and I don't know if Outlook can add a feature from booked. You can't allow somebody else to book it
I
even if they
know.
want to. It just removes you automatically. Like, I'm sorry, I didn't see it. But
That would be nice.
yeah, exactly. Speaking of technology changes, I talked about technology changing so fast to the point where I think it's probably accurate to say we're looking at least quarterly changes at this
Mhm.
point. Where I remember when I first got into the industry, and you probably remember too, we were talking 2, 3 years between technology stacks and those things changing. So, with technology changing so fast, what skill sets or mindsets do you look to advise people on things they should invest in for the next 5 to 10 years? Or can we even put that into a plan at this point?
I say 5 to 10 years is almost impossible to do too because things change so much, right? However, I tell people to always be flexible. If you're not flexible, technology is probably not the space that you should be in. You also have to be a constant learner and just naturally curious, I feel like, to really thrive in it. And the people that I see that are most successful in it are constantly trying to learn new things. It's even if it's on their own time, right? They're just constantly trying to stay relevant, stay knowledgeable. That's extremely important as the industry continues to evolve.
Now, one thing I deal with it as a leader, a people leader, I should say. There's different types of leaders, but a people leader is the notion that I've done all this, I should be promoted. And so, as people leaders, you have that decision making power in your hands to push this person forward for promotion versus that person, nobody, everyone. How do you handle those types of conversations with someone who's motivated to advance their career, whether it's because of the position, whether it's because of the money, whether it's because of the experience? Maybe they're just passionate about the area or technology, one or all of those things. How do you handle those conversations? And I'll break it up to whether, someone who actually deserves it versus someone who they probably should wait a little longer.
I've had that conversation a lot. I'll start with the people that should maybe wait a little bit longer. So you might be a really hard worker, but you're working harder and not smarter. You might be kind of running in a hamster wheel all day, for lack of a better way of putting it, but the task that you're completing may not be the most value added task or the most necessary task for the position that you're in. So I think that I know I've had conversations with people where I have to help kind of redirect them, help redefine what success looks like for them, because while they may be working a lot of hours, they're not necessarily moving the needle and showing that they're ready for some sort of career progression. So that's one side. There's the other side where people are deserving of a promotion. There may or may not be an opportunity available for them at that time. And that's helping them understand, like, yes, you are demonstrating the skill sets, continue to operate at a level that demonstrates you're ready for the next step. And also, let's make sure that your network is reflective of the fact that you're open to additional opportunities. Your path may not be linear and just go in a straight path. It may kind of curve a little bit, and that's an okay thing. And that's where you kind of open doors and expand your network and meet people that can be, in a position to help you get your next opportunity, whether they're creating a role for you or opening you up to a possibility that you didn't realize that you could have.
Okay. So let me flip it a little bit, take a step back to before you even come to a company. One of the things I used to do, especially when I consulted, was I used to love negotiating contracts just because I used to ask for 1.5 times what I wanted and settle for 1.25, just to give them the feeling that we got what we want, but not knowing they really 125% of what I wanted. Negotiating tactics in today's world, and again, focusing on the fact that job market is crazy. Companies are doing whatever they can to cut costs, whether it's outsourcing overseas or just driving down the rates for positions. How do you negotiate in this particular climate?
There's a couple of key points. One is you do need to know your worth and you do need to know the value that you bring to the table, but you also have to be able to defend and justify that. So you can't just ask for more money just for the sake of asking for more money. You have to
You can't?
advocate for yourself and demonstrate demonstrate why they should invest more money in you than the next candidate who may be equally qualified and who also is ready to accept whatever the initial offer may be. So that's how I always approach those conversations. I'll kind of say, this is what I know this is what you're expecting of the role, and now this is what I can do that's above and beyond the role. So you might have expected someone with a master's degree, I have a doctorate degree. You might have expected someone with 10 years of experience, I've got 15 or 20 years, right? Like, you kind of have to show that this is the baseline and where you've stepped above the baseline. So if your salary that you're offering me was based on the baseline for the position, now I'm going to show you what I bring that's above that, and that's going to justify why I'm asking for more money above what you've offered as well.
Gotcha. I never did any of that. I just said, listen, look what I've done.
I'm
That's
not
it.
surprised.
Listen, may my actions speak for themselves.
I'm Not surprised.
right?
I
Google
also
me.
know, and you know this too, that companies are rarely, I won't say never, but are very rarely going to come with their best offer the first
Yeah,
time. But a lot of people don't know that. And if you're in a desperate position where you maybe lost your job or you're burnt out at your current job and you're just desperate to get the next best thing, you may be leaving a lot of money on the table. And it's also
yeah,
not always base salary that you're negotiating as well. There's bonuses, there's sign on bonuses, there's time off, there's all these other things
benefits.
that
Yeah,
come into it. Yeah.
yeah. It wasn't until I became a people leader permanently, and I started to look at the intricacies of managing people and personnel and benefits and all that stuff, and having those conversations with HR and hiring and all that stuff, that I realized that the goal is to bring you in at the lowest value level that you're at. That way you could be promoted up, and it feels like you're gaining something, but you're still in that same bucket. You're just getting,
Hmm.
more water in that bucket. It's all about perception, right?
That's true.
And that's why that question of what salary you're looking for, I always dislike that question, because I'm never going to be honest. Number one, um, because I know you're looking for something that fits your budget, so you can do other things with the money.
Right.
So it's always one of those balancing things. That's why I don't like job descriptions that don't include salary, because I don't know where to start at. And so now
Hmm.
I've got to come in where I come in, and if that's too high, too low, we'll figure it out.
I mean, you have to do your research too. The good thing, and
Hmm.
I guess this is one of the many benefits of so much stuff being online, and
Yeah,
there's information. You may not be able to get very precise, but you can get at least a ballpark range of what that role pays within a company or in similar
hmm,
companies, and that kind of helps start the negotiation process as well.
yeah. I think it was it glassceiling.com or something like that has that type of
Glassdoor
info.
is one, pay scale is one. There's a lot
Yeah,
of them that are out there that have, the salary comparisons.
got you. So let's move to someone who said, you know what, this isn't my career. This is not where I want to be. I'm not passionate about this company, and they decide to move and start something new. What mistakes do you see people making, whether it's in the company they choose or the alignment of the industry they either stay in or move to another industry? What mistakes do you see people taking, or risky steps you see people taking with their career moves?
The grass is not always greener, so know what you're moving for and understand that, for example, I'm in technology delivery, right? It's always going to be fast paced, it's always going to be stressful, there's always going to be frequent change. So, if any of those things are the reason that I am fed up in a role, I am not at the wrong company. I'm in the wrong role or the wrong industry or the wrong, technology domain, period. And I think that's where people don't always look at the bigger picture. They feel fed up, burnt out, misaligned, whatever the case may be. And they might think that the grass is greener at the next organization, but it may just be that you're not in the role that you're supposed to be in. You're not doing something that you're going to enjoy long term.
Got you. And so, last question before I ask you about what you do. Um, how do and we talked a little bit about this, relationships and elevator pitches and those things, but how do relationships, networking, mentoring impact one's ability to endure their career? And when I say endure, I mean the ups and downs of a company, the ups and downs of a career, whether or not to change lanes, whether or not to change companies. How do those things impact those decisions, but also generally the success of someone's career?
I mean, having mentors is extremely important, and it's not always about having someone to help elevate you to the next step. It's just even having a sounding board at times. I have one that I'm really close to. We worked together a few companies ago and have just been in touch ever since. And when I have any career changes that are going on, or I'm, working on a big project or redesigning a process or something that I know that she's had experience with, I'll call just as a sounding board and we talk it through and she gives me her perspective, and usually that goes into one of my next steps, right? So I think those relationships are always extremely important, and it's not always just looking at it from the sake of career progression, but just being able to have a sounding board to support you throughout your journey.
Yeah, I had a guest on, I want to say 4 or 5 episodes ago, and we talked about mentors. And I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but I believe he said that you shouldn't have a mentor that's not going to make you $1 million or something like that. Like, mentors should be there to make you money, and that's why you should pay your mentors. Um, I have to go back and listen to that episode, but that was the gist of it. And granted, he was more on the financial side of things, but he was also talking about life. and
Hmm.
what you can get out of mentors and what you could bring as a mentor. And I think he said his fee was like 250,000 to be a mentor, but it will make people more than that, something like that.
Okay.
Like I said, I could be butchering it. There was money involved. That's all I know.
Okay.
But the flip side of that is you have a mentor you rely on that you use for a sounding board and advice and career advice. The other side of that, bad networking, bad connections. How can they hurt, and what kind of pitfalls in relationships should people look for as far as their career is concerned?
I have an example I can give. So there was
Uh-oh.
a person that was um, jumping on the bandwagon within their role for something I don't think they should have jumped on. They were kind of clicking up with a group of people that just were not necessarily making smart career decisions, and you know their work was suffering. And I told this person, I said, hey, I know that you do better work than this. I know the quality of work that you put out and the type of person that you are. Take it for what it's worth, but I don't think that's the bandwagon that you should jump on. That probably won't professionally help you get to where you're trying to go. And they didn't, you know, they didn't really respond much at that point immediately. It was like, okay, okay. But about a month or so later, when they saw that two of the few people in that group were let go from the organization, I got a thank you. I didn't see that coming. And it's like, it's you're judged kind of by the company you keep, and that's professionally or not professionally. So the quality of your network does matter.
Yeah, I watch Strictly Business because it keeps coming on, and it's one of my favorite movies from back in the day. And the guy, I remember the end of the movie when they get the deal. Wayman gets the deal for the Savoy Tower. I can't believe I remember this so vividly. Um, there's the two guys. One guy tried to bring him down, the other guy's trying to latch on to him, and they're coming back from lunch. It's way in the afternoon, and the one guy gets fired, and the other guy tries to save his job essentially, but speaking to the company that you keep. And I don't know why that particular movie popped in my head, but it's a great example of not hitching on to someone just because they appear to be a little bit up there
Mhm.
or appear to get away with things, you know.
Yeah.
So, so before we move on to my favorite segment with my guest called First Thoughts, talk about what those who want advice or assistance or to use your services, talk about what they can expect from you and your website.
Sure. My website is www.thesuccessdoc.com. Instagram is also the Success Doc, so you can find me on there and on Facebook as well. If you're looking for just support with salary negotiation, interview preparation, resumes, LinkedIn, all of those things, anything that's kind of impacting your career journey or anything that impacts you taking the next step in your journey, then I would be the person to be able to help you, and happy to do so.
Now, curious, you do HR issues?
It depends.
Okay, okay.
It depends. I can talk you through some because I've had my fair share of experiences with HR
Hmm.
issues. However, I'm not an HR consultant, but I've got enough experience in my toolkit to be able to help people navigate those as well.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I don't have any HR issues. I'm just curious.
I didn't think
Just want
so.
to put that out there. You know, this day and age, you can't say too much on social media or podcasts. But all right, so that's all for the interview section or portion of this podcast with my guest. And now we go to my favorite segment, my guest called First Thoughts. But first, Dave's Head Podcast is now part of the Live Podcast Network, home of Black Voices, where community, culture, and creatives lives. Dave's Head Podcast adds to a catalog of over 70 titles available in the Live Podcast Network and app for both iOS and Android, and now also on Fire TV. Check out Dave's Head Podcast and many others in the Live Podcast app, the home of Black Voices. Now, Nicole, I know you're coming back for the second time, but do you remember First Thoughts?
I do remember. It stressed me out.
Okay. Well, we don't aim to do that, although we have like a 90% hit rate, so I guess we're successful in that regard. But for those joining or watching for the first time, and welcome on the Live Podcast Network. First Thoughts is my opportunity as my guest to offer them a word or a phrase to get their first thoughts. They're not privy to these. Obviously, that's why the stress is created, because if they were privy to them, it would also ruin first thoughts. So, Nicole, you ready for some first thoughts?
Sure.
All right, first thought, pretty simple. Career clarity. What's your first thought?
Whew, that's a good one. Career clarity. I would say I start thinking back to misalignment and really asking yourself where you are in your career, what direction you're trying to go in, and are you on a path that's going to get you there?
Okay. Next, first thought, own your voice. What's your first thought?
That goes into the branding part that I spoke on earlier. So, part of your brand is how you communicate, how you show up, how you present yourself, what do you do. That's all part of your voice as well, owning your voice. You don't want someone else to control that. You want to control that for yourself.
Yeah, I think it also is being invested in your decisions, right? Like, so, doing your research, making
Yep.
clear decisions, owning and supporting those decisions, because it shows not only that you're invested in what you're doing, but you know what you're doing, right?
Agreed.
All right, last first thought, purpose over position. What's your first thought?
If you are operating out of your purpose, then I feel like regardless of the position, you are going to get a return on that. You're going to experience what you're striving for in your career. You can be in the wrong position and not operating within your purpose and be miserable. So while I'm in a position of leadership in an organization, if I felt like that position wasn't part of my purpose, I probably wouldn't be there.
Hmm. And while you were saying that, I was thinking, because I love doing these types of questions. If you, and you have to pick one, if you had to pick your choice, take a choice. I can't get, it's all jumbled right now. If you had to make a choice, would you rather be 100% involved in something that aligns with your purpose but in the wrong position, or be in the position that you absolutely love and passionate about but it'd be the wrong purpose?
I'd say that's a tough one. I'd say position that I'm passionate about, but it's the wrong purpose.
Hmm.
Um, if it's the wrong purpose, though, I still feel like that's short lived. Eventually, like in my mind, eventually I want to make sure that in my career journey, I am fulfilling the purpose that I feel like I'm supposed to fulfill. So,
Hmm.
while I mentioned earlier, paths may not always be linear, you may kind of swerve a bit to go from one position to another. It may be a position that's great, but it may not be exactly my purpose. I feel like I'd eventually have to get back on the path of fulfilling my purpose.
Yeah, this may be a false equivalency, but I equate it to being happy in the wrong position or miserable in the right position.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can ever choose miserable. It's just, I'd be content. Definitely wouldn't be happy,
Hmm.
but I'd rather be happy in the wrong position than miserable in the right position, because it doesn't feel like I'd be fulfilled completely.
No, no.
Right.
There's no one that's benefiting when someone is miserably showing up to work every day. Not the person receiving the paycheck and not the organization that's paying it either. So no,
Hmm.
I wouldn't suggest that.
I talked about it on the intro, but we didn't really talk about it. Quiet quitting, and I have experience with this. It was not, as a leader, people leader. It's not something that I enjoyed being a part of, because I
Hmm.
knew this person was quiet quitting, and they were literally there until they found something better. And in my own selfishness, I wish it was 2 weeks. It was like 4 months. Um, and so, somebody quiet quitting for 4 months is just a terrible thing to be
It is.
a part of. Um, what's your experience? And I know we've got through first thoughts, and I'm kind of throwing a bonus one in there. But if
Mhm.
I give you quiet quitting, what would your first thought be?
It's become common, almost
Mm-hmm.
normalized, and I think that's a problem. But I think in the pandemic, where a lot of people that even previously didn't work remote had the opportunity to start working remotely, I saw a lot more quiet quitting happening because they didn't have to physically show up the same way they might have previously. And that allowed them the flexibility to feel like they could silently detach and pursue their next opportunity. And with everything else going on at that time, they were able to do that. So it's become more common and normalized than it
Mm-hmm.
previously was.
Gotcha. No, I 100% agree with that. It's a really bad analogy. It's a monkey grabbing one thing before they let go of the other, but really bad analogy. Um, all right, so that's the end of first thoughts, and you are fortunate, Nicole, for coming back this season, because this season I started something new with my guests. called Teal First Thoughts. And what that does is offer the opportunity for my guests to throw a first thought back at me.
Okay.
So if you had something you wanted to get my first thought on, what would it be?
Um, you're in tech, so and you've worked remotely before too, a lot of years. So I'm sure you've seen kind of piggybacking off the quiet quitting thing, where people have been overemployed, and that also became
Mm.
popular in the pandemic. What's your thoughts or experience on that?
I think if shortcuts exist, people will take them.
Hmm.
And the ability to work from home, and listen, not saying that I do this, just to put that asterisk out there.
Right.
But there are times I multitask across organizations, um, and it's not something I like to do that common. But in today's world, multiple streams of income and multiple ways to getting towards retirement are
Hmm.
what people are searching for.
Hmm.
And so, what used to be overemployment is simply supplementing income or creating that emergency plan. Because think about 10 years ago, I think the stat was something like 85% of people didn't have 6 months of savings.
Hmm.
And so what's a better way to do that than working from home, doing something on the side where you would complain about it years ago, but now it's just the norm.
That's a really good answer. I agree with that.
Yeah. But not saying I do any of that stuff whatsoever.
Exactly. Exactly. Thank you.
All right, Nicole, this was fun. Before I let you go, as I always do with my guests, offer you the opportunity if there's anything you want to talk about or promote. I know you talked about your website already, but anything you want to talk about or promote, feel free to do so now.
I think I've done it all. Thank you. I'm happy that I had the opportunity to come back again.
All right. Well, it was great to have you on. Some great jewels or gems, as I like to say, dropped, especially about career. I think in this day and age, now, I don't like that saying, but I've used it like 10 times already this episode. But there's so many things changing with the industry. I think, I saw the other day a company I won't mention because, I got agreements with them, potentially doing layoffs coming up in the next quarter. Stock markets, for me anyway, is like a waste of time to even look at. So there's so many things today impacting what we can do. And I talked about this in my opening real quick before I let you go. When I went down to Orlando, hung out with those 20 guys celebrating 50 years, being in that room with people who are executives. There's one guy whose family owns 75 McDonald's franchises, which I thought that number was just ridiculous. But in the grand scheme of things, it's probably, I don't know, 15,000 McDonald's. But still, um, finding alternate ways other than corporate, you know, brick and mortar corporate life, it may be the new way to go. And I talked about before with youth that, college isn't for everybody. Sometimes the trades, hands-on skill sets, plumbers, carpenters, machine welders, whatever, is the way to go. And so looking at how this is all changing drastically year over year and how corporations exist, it's to your point about overworking and supplemental income.
Hmm.
You may not need it if you choose an industry that isn't as volatile as technology is.
It's true.
So
That's very true.
yeah, just wanted to leave that thought. But Nicole, thank you once again for stepping in Dave's head again.
You.
Hope to have you back another point in the future when we're doing a whole nother feature Dave's head. But as I've said to all my guests this season, may every today be the best day of your life.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
My favorite segment of my podcast is my GRIN, which stands for Great Reason to Be in Love with Now. With everything that's going on in the world, I opened up talking about some of my issues I have with cancel culture, quote unquote cancel culture, and attacks on freedoms and rights. But I didn't talk about how we can work to get things better. And I asked the question of, how far is enough? The other question is, what can we do to stop it from getting that far? And one of the things that came to mind was community, engaging your community to make relations better. A lot of times we talk about with elections that national elections don't necessarily drive home what's happening in local communities, that local communities elections, local councilmen and congressmen and mayors and sheriffs and judges and all those things matter more to the daily impact on your life. And so engaging your community to make relations better is kind of an important thing to kind of get this started. If you start here, in the area you live in and grow and grow and grow. Eventually, hopefully that will spread across the nation. It's an idea, it's a hypothesis. That's what I'm going with. But community engagement isn't just nice. It builds social capital, trust, and mutual support in ways that, like I just alluded to, ripple outward. If you begin to tamp down or push down the seeds of hate, bigotry, racism, classism, all these things, you begin to do that locally, and hopefully that will spread and spread and spread and not be polluted or interrupted by outside influence, and it can continue to grow and eventually spread across the country. The idea is to start small: neighborhood events, voluntary events, mutual aid, informal check-ins with neighbors. These actions, these things, these steps that you can take help to strengthen the bonds in your community. Think about the last time you had a block party. Now, I go back to South Philly in the 80s and 90s, where block captains, I don't know if those still exist anymore. I can't tell you last time I talked to someone that was a quote unquote block captain, but block captains would organize these block parties. You know, you block all the street on both ends, you clear parking, people go park somewhere around the corner or down by the park or wherever, clear the street, clean the street, and the entire street would be a community event for the people who lived in that block. And even neighboring blocks, they would come join. Those type of bonding, strengthening community events can go a long way to, again, starting small and hopefully grow. Well, that neighborhood did it, why can't we do it? Or that city did it, why can't this city do it? Or that state has improved its relations statewide, which I know is a big feat, but just follow me here. Why can't this state do it? Another thing, connecting across divides, political, generational, economic, by listening, having quote unquote neighborhood halls instead of town halls, neighborhood halls or block halls or community halls for, community developments. Not just because HOA says something up, but because you have people who care in your community, whether it's a neighborhood, the local community, the city, state, borough, whatever, had these little community hall events and listen and share and participate together. It could, again, hypothesis, it could help to heal and prevent and stop some of this polarization that's going on in our communities. That's what could help. Lastly, engagement. Engagement can give a sense of purpose and belonging. Think about as parents, friends, relatives age, the less active they are, just generally speaking, the less engaged or part of the collective, part of the family they feel. They kind of, get into a corner, a dark spot, don't move, don't work out, sit around all day. But the more they're active, the more they're participating in things going on in the family or the neighborhood or the senior center or wherever they feel motivated to participate, the more lively they are. Same thing to me applies with engagement in the community. The more times you go around in your neighborhood and just talk to the neighbors you don't talk to that often, get to know them a little bit. Maybe even hear their problems. Maybe you're like me when I travel by myself. People want to just come up to you and talk about their problems, not necessarily so that you can fix them, but because they just needed to get it off their chest. Maybe it's an opportunity to have a conversation and clear up something that someone believed to be true, but wasn't true at all. And again, that takes receiving, comprehending, accepting, and then moving on with that understanding that they just learned. You can't, listen, I got sayings for days today. You can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make them drink, right? You can drop whatever facts you want to people. If some people are rocks and some people are sponges, and if they refuse to understand and believe facts, that's on them. You can only do so much, but engagement is a key. Maybe they won't believe you today, but the 300th person that told them this between now and next year, maybe they'll start to get it. But it reminds us that we are part of something larger than ourselves when we engage. Engagement is as much for the person we're engaging with as it is for us. Because if we still have the willingness and belief that our engagement can result in positive things, that benefits us. That keeps our morale up. That keeps us engaged in the sense that we still believe, like we did yesterday and like we will tomorrow, that we can positively impact something just by engaging it. But when we stop doing that, when we shut down, when we get frustrated, like I do, admittedly, I'm sorry. But when we shut down and don't want to engage those who we disagree with anymore, that's where things go south. That's when even the lack of engagement can be misinterpreted as a form of disrespect. So engage in your community to make relations better. That's my GRIN for today. The hope that more talk, more understanding, more acceptance, more facts lies in our future. Despite the present situation and environment, I get it. I'm a hopeless romantic. I'm a hopeless optimist, if you will. I want to thank Dr. Nicole Godlock, the Success Doc, for stepping in Dave's head and dropping some gems on us. She's doctor, career coach, and tech executive. Triple threat. Thank you, Dr. Nicole, for stepping in Dave's head. Again, you can check her out on our website, www.thesuccessdoc.com, and also on Instagram at thesuccessdoc with underscores between each word, the_success_doc. Lastly, as I've been doing all season, I want to leave you a quote for this episode. This quote is by Ernest Hemingway. You might have heard of him, kind of famous author, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's appropriate for a lot of the conversation we've had today, whether it's career growth and advancing your career, whether it's engaging your community, trying to make things better, whether it's pushing back against the rights that are being stripped away and the freedoms that are being stripped away. Being in the room to make those connections, to do all those things is important. But also being humble in your ability and your impact on people. And so the quote is this: there is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. It's important to learn and be better tomorrow than you were today, not just in your personal life, not just in your career, but as a component and a part of the entire community. If you aren't better for your community than you were yesterday, if you're in fact worse, you are not helping not only yourself, you're not helping this community or this world. And it's important to be a positive asset to this world because positivity spreads, just like negativity, but positivity spreads. So 50 years, clarity, and engagement. All great reasons to be in love with now. That's all for this episode of Dave's Head. If you enjoyed this episode, I'm sure you'll love similar content in the Alive Podcast Network app. Plus, you can support this podcast and enjoy ad-free listening to nearly 100 other Black-hosted podcasts. Download the iOS or Android app, become a member, and experience unlimited access to Black-hosted content week after week. Follow, like, and or subscribe to this podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and or X at Dave's Head Pod, and on YouTube at Dave's Head Podcast. For more information and links to all things Dave's Head, check out our website at daveshead.card.co. Episode premiere on the second and fourth Fridays of the month. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, enjoy life because life should be fun. Take care.